resurrection sets the stage to turn the page. At the rising of the curtain, I am hurting and uncertain of the parts that we have played. Why must the show go on? I can't say these lines again. Why must the show go on? Must I sing this song again? Fading out of the close-up, everybody's reeling, no concealing. Your beauty is seed stealing. Violins are singing, sunset's waiting, radiating. Your entrance is breathtaking. Why must the show go on? I can't say these lines again. Why must the show go on? Must I sing this song again?
Hello, everybody. My name is Drew Quinones. Welcome to episode 25 of the Four Wall Sunday Roundtable. Today, so it should be a great episode to end off the month. This will be the final episode of November. We will be back at for the first Sunday of December. We'll take this week or next weekend off for Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving to everybody in advance. I am joined once again by my co-host Jeff Kreuter. Hey, Jeff.
Hey, I'm good, Drew. How are you?
Doing good.
Your video froze again a little bit through that, and every time that happens, I have like a miniature panic attack. So
sorry.
Right. No, we're good. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. Yeah. How was your week? How are you doing?
It was good. I'm not going to be in Vegas for Thanksgiving, so I did kind of like a early Thanksgiving and smoked my first turkey ever, and it came out great. So that was pretty much all I was.
That's amazing.
On. Yeah.
So now when I'm in Vegas, you're going to have to. That's one more thing you're going to have to make for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Can't wait. Your Raiders are playing tonight. Is that true?
Yeah, they play the Chiefs right after this show. So let's wrap it up before 8:20.
No problem. Otherwise, I'll be in trouble elsewhere.
Yeah.
Kate. The Giants didn't lose today because they had a bye. So there's.
Okay. That makes sense.
As Drew mentioned, we will not be doing a show next week. So this is our Thanksgiving episode. And I want to give thanks to all the people involved in putting it together. Everyone at Four Wall. There's so many people there. And maybe Drew, at some point, we should actually thank everyone by name. There's so many people who help us do this. So thank you, Four Wall and Al Rodella. And Drew, thank you. And Chris Barron, once again, for the song. Everyone stream it. That's the right word. Yeah, stream it.
Well, I'll say it right now. Ariel Chambers
is
our graphic designer, and she does all our graphics and everything for me every week, even when I have a lot of changes, which is every single
week.
So, yeah. So thank you, Ariel.
And thank you to all of our guests, everyone who is watching and watched. And we know this is a hard year, but I think there's still plenty to be thankful for. So thank you. And also shout out to my father, whose birthday was yesterday. I'm not going to give the age away, but happy birthday, Dad.
Happy birthday, Jeff, Dad. My dad's watching right now too. He texts me before every episode.
Oh, cool.
So thanks for watching, Dad.
This is our third Education and COVID episode. And last time we spoke about the expectations for the start of the semester. And now here we are halfway through. Time is really flying. And we have another great group here to let us know how it's going for them. So Drew.
Yep.
Let's,
our first guest of the night is Jorge Arroyo, Assistant Professor of Lighting Design at Boston University. Hey, Jorge.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Going good. Thank you so much again for joining us.
My pleasure.
Our next panelist of the night is Jennifer Dasher. She is the Assistant Professor of Costume Design at the University of Florida. Hey, Jen. Sorry, I said Jennifer.
That's okay. I go by her.
Okay. And next is Ann Mundell, Professor of Scenic Design at Carnegie Mellon University. Hey, Ann. Oh no, Ann, you're muted.
Sorry, my mouse is just picked right now to be on the fritz. So hello, everybody.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us. And last and certainly not least, Justin Townsend, Associate Professor of Lighting Design at Brooklyn College.
Hey, how you doing? Hey,
Good.
hey, everybody.
hey, thanks everyone for joining us. Welcome.
Yeah. Well, let's jump in. I'll go to you, Justin, first. Before we talk about your work in education, can you just please give us what inspired you to become a lighting design, and where did you start?
I've been thinking about, you get this question a lot, and it's changed over the years. So it's funny to think that the history of an answer can change. But I think it's about, as I think more about it, it's about community. That it was really about finding a place to be a part of making something, of doing something together, of learning how to fit in and be a part of something bigger than maybe what I understood at first, and having so much to learn and making something to be really excited and proud of. And so that I think that really kicked off for me, what it meant to be in the theater.
Cool.
Awesome. And Anne, how about you?
Well, let's see. I was hanging upside down from a catwalk, hanging a light for Paul Gallo in the way back. And I did it for community too, just like Justin. And as I was hanging upside down, the wonderful Ken Foy was just beneath me painting a set. And I froze because I suddenly realized, what am I doing up here? I want to be down there. What he was doing was so extraordinary that I was hanging upside down at the moment when I realized what I needed to do.
What was that show? Do you remember? What was the show?
It was Romeo and Juliet, kind of a strange and spectacular production that I ran lights for very badly because I'm bad at all things light. So
Artistically.
And Jen, how about you?
I actually have to agree with both of them that it was a lot about community and belonging. I grew up as an Air Force brat, so the people that I belonged to was my family. And then suddenly in college, you're not with your family, so you're looking for a space to belong. And I was in an intro to theater class, and it just sort of pulled me into the community there.
Cool.
Awesome.
It is. There is so much about community. It's part of why we all do it. So Jen, was teaching something you always wanted to do? How and when did it begin for you? How did you begin working in education?
I think I wasn't always sure what I wanted to do. And certainly my journey with teaching has been sort of back and forth in and out of just working professionally and then teaching as well. When I was younger teaching, I felt like I didn't have enough to give students. They were really looking for a mentor, and I hadn't quite figured out my own career yet. So I'm finally at a space where I'm very certain that I want to teach and why I want to teach.
Thanks, Jen. We skipped Jorge on the first question.
The first question.
It usually takes us a while to start screwing up. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jorge.
All right. Should I answer the first question then, I guess?
Yeah.
So for me, it began with a really, really simple question, which was, what color is sunlight? I was taking a lighting design class in my undergrad, a small little program, Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, maybe about 60 majors. It's a BA program. And I had to take a design class to graduate. And the professor asked, what color is sunlight? And I just kind of realized that I hadn't really thought about it. And he asked a lot of questions like that throughout the semester, and it just got me so curious about what this is and what is this tool that we can use to communicate with an audience. So then I was working on a costume project. I was actually assigned to be the light board operator in the theater for a show, and I had my costume project, and I was actually like working on it at the light board, but I was spending more time looking at the stage and sort of going, oh, I wonder if it really should be more like this. I don't agree with that choice. I think so. That's kind of how it began for me.
Another assistant who doesn't agree with the lighting designer's choices.
Right.
Thank you, Jorge. So Jorge, why don't we stay with you?
Okay.
Did you always think you'd become a teacher? And how and when did it begin for you?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I feel like I can really pinpoint the moment in which both my career as a designer got started and also as an educator. So I was taking this lighting design class, as I just said, and I was gonna design my first show. It was like 6 lights in a little studio. It was not a big deal at all. But my professor was coming to see the show, and I was so excited. And he actually, so this is Ken Cloth, if anybody knows Ken from back in the Wisconsin, Milwaukee days, amazing designer. Well, he passed away like 15 minutes before curtain. Oh. And I sort of realized that moment, I said, wow, okay, this means something to me. His opinion meant something. What he thought about what I did with 6 lights was so important to me that I should really sort of explore this. Why is it so meaningful to me? But also at the same time too, I realized that he made an impact for me in a really short time, and so I said I have to pay that forward.
That's amazing, and here you are, and it works.
And here we are. That's right.
And how about you?
I definitely did not want to teach. I had no interest in teaching. That was the very last thing that I wanted to do. When I was painting a show for Cletus Anderson, who is the head of the program at Carnegie Mellon. And at one point I was sort of desperate for money, and I turned to him and I said, Cletus, should you ever need anybody to help out over at CMU, just let me know. Cletus, by the way, had not admitted me to that program. He had turned me down. And I had not reminded him of that fact before I asked him, for work. So Cletus got a film, and he was like, well, can you fill in for me for 6 weeks? And I said, sure. It was like, it was over $1,000, which to me was nearly $1 million. Hard to differentiate at that point in my life.
Sure.
And so I went and I said everything that I had to say on the subject, which I thought was a whole lot. I was exhausted, and I looked up at the clock and 10 minutes had passed. And it was a 3-hour class. But I kept going back, and I realized that I started to learn more from my students than they could have possibly been learning from me. And that the experience of interrogating instincts and being in a room and just talking about the work made me a far better designer, and I fell in love with my students. So it was a total accident and something I did not want to do. Yeah.
So after that 10 minutes, do you remember what you did next?
Yeah, all that I could do is like, so questions, it was sort of at that point, what's your experience, which was maybe the best instinct I ever had in the classroom, my best, first and last.
Justin, how about you?
Yeah, I guess I grew up, or many of us did, but grew up around great teachers. My father was a great teacher for me, and also then when I think certainly in the electrics field, I started as an electrician at my college, and there's a tradition of sort of education as one speaks, because you never know who's on the crew, and there was some great leadership there. Jerry, it's been a couple of years since I've been an undergraduate, who ran the electrics department, would sort of speak intuitively as he was about what he needed to have happen as a part of education. And so I don't think there was ever a plan to be an educator or not. It was just something that was always around me and a part of both of the sort of culture I was growing up in, and then also something that I was doing as a part of understanding about how to get ahead and how to participate in the industry. It also became really symbiotic for me in my design career, in a sense that like I could work and be able to work as a professor, work and really be engaged in a school, both Northeastern and then later Brooklyn College, and then be able to be more selective or precise about the shows I was taking. So
Sure.
work that I didn't have to only work, I could say, oh, I want to do these shows and I want to be present in my other career.
Yeah. Which is actually a perfect segue to my next question. So thank you, Justin. We'll stick with you. How do you manage that balance between your two careers as a professional and educator?
Yeah, for me, it's been really, it's what I bring to the classroom and what the classroom brings to my work, meaning that I don't know if I really have, because there's always a question of like, what is it and what are we doing and how are we doing it? I tend not to teach with a pedagogy of if you pass these 4 tests, you too can be a lighting designer, but more a curiosity and questioning and pursuit. And so I really, in some ways, I'm practicing those skills alongside of my students and really appreciate the time and about where their mindset is. And so I'm sure that it would be better for them if I were sitting in my office fielding every single one of their questions. And I'm sure that if I did that for me, I wouldn't have much to offer for them. So,
Sure.
So it's a complex compromise they get with me.
And Jen, how do you balance your two careers as a professional and educator?
So this is actually my first year in a tenure track position. So I haven't had to balance those two, if that makes sense. No one has been demanding it. But certainly in the last several years, while at the University of Florida in a visiting position, I have worked professionally in a number of different places all over the country. And I think the students understand that is adding something to their education. And so for me, it's really about being communicative with my colleagues, particularly in the costume area itself, and making sure that they know they have access to me should there be an issue with a student or something I need to take care of, but also I know I can trust them.
Right. And Jorge, what about you?
So, I started teaching about 10 years ago. I was at Montclair State University, right close to Justin, right? I was living like 2 blocks from campus. And it was actually relatively easy because I could be sort of mentoring in tech, and then dinner break, I would run home. I would check on my son, maybe make him some dinner, and then I'd run back into tech. It was so easy. Now it's a little more challenging. It's really just it's such a juggle. It's such a juggle to do. The professional career and the educational career, they're independent, and at the same time too, they're tied together intricately. So whenever we can, we try to take our students. Mark Stanley and I are always sort of trading classes. He's out of town, so I cover his class, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes if we're both out of town, we'll try to we'll pool our resources together financially and try to bring somebody to cover our classes. But it's always, whenever I can, I try to have the students come into my text whenever possible. I was doing a show at the Huntington Avenue Theater last year, and it was on a Tuesday when I teach. And so I said, well, let's meet over there during lunchtime. And they got to watch a little bit of tech of myself sort of interacting with the director, backstage tour. I told them, talk to them a little bit about the show. So they're separate, but at the same time too linked.
Right. Mm-hmm. And Anne?
I'm glad that I was last because I was sort of leaning in, looking for clues. What everybody else said, it's in many ways, the two things are inextricable.
Right.
And when I'm on campus, which I haven't been since March, my studio is my office. And if people wander in, I hand them something to do while we talk. I also, when I'm on the road, I try and take them on a tour of whatever it is I'm doing. The last show that I was on the road for, which was the last show that had a full run for me, was 30 feet of bare plywood, which wasn't meant to be bare plywood, 30 by 60 feet of bare plywood on the first night of tech. So we had an entire class with me walking around, FaceTiming them. Okay, we had a bad printing situation. These walls had printing, these walls were supposed to be printed and now they're plywood. What are we gonna do? But I don't know about everybody else, but one of the things that I've been struggling with and my colleagues have been struggling with is how to model being a human. Theater people are sort of taught that you go until you fall over. And so we're trying to look at that. I'm trying to look at that a little bit differently, and model, the fact that your work is you, but you are not your work. And so I'm trying to learn balance at a very old age.
Yeah. Plywood on the first day of tech. So as a lighting designer, I don't know. I think I need to go for a walk. That's what happened. Did you fix it, or was it that's what it was?
Yeah. Fortunately, I was working with my dear friend Kirk Bookman.
Oh,
we have decades of history of fun things. That was maybe the worst thing I've done to him so far. And he was kind and understanding, and somehow he still made me look good in the end. So
he's a good lighting designer. That doesn't surprise me at all. Jorge, let's go to you. You all teach in theater programs, I think, right? Do you incorporate other aspects into the program? Do you teach film, TV, or lighting, maybe scenery, corporate, architectural, and design? Can you give us a brief description of the program, Jorge?
Absolutely. So our classes are not geared towards those disciplines specifically. We are still teaching the basics, focus, color, composition, all those things. But we primarily focus on dramaturgy, on theater, on live performance in a theatrical venue. However, we do have a class called Colloquium, which meets every Tuesday, and every discipline meets with their own. It's all years, undergraduate and graduate. And so when the lighting students are together, we take the time to cover some of these topics that we don't get a chance to cover in our lighting classes specifically. Sometimes it's us. We just finished we've done 3 weeks of television lighting. First week was about intensity, how the camera captures intensity. We did one about color. We also did one on composition for camera, but we also have had Bob Barnhart and John Gates have come to be our guests, and we have Steve Rosen, Chris Fournier as well, who are amazing architectural lighting designers. Gary Cooper came by as well, I think last year, who's a scenic and lighting designer in industrial and corporate shows, and talked to us about his work with the Ford Motor Company, and showed us a project. So we find the time to get that information, even though our classes aren't necessarily focused on that.
The building block is theater, but then you
That's right. Absolutely. It's the starting point for everything. Yeah. Absolutely.
Anne, how about you?
I've become more anti-silo as I get older. And we kind of teach as much as we can possibly fit. We do one-offs. For example, I had the entire art department for Orange is the New Black, most of whom are CMU alums, come and teach a class, Skype a class for us on production design. And we do lots and lots of workshops with people. So we bring in people who are experts in whatever niche there is. And always try and start by doing what we were just talking about, which is starting with the dramaturgy and figuring out, what's the center of the idea? What's the idea? How do you work up? What are you investigating? And it's fun.
And it's fun. Justin, how about you?
Yeah, I think we're teaching a program that's holistic in its approach. So what I'm really excited about is that it's a production-oriented program. So there's a directing program, there's a playwriting program next door, and so we're trying to produce and have our students make and be prolific in making work, both in helping each other make work and being leaders and designers in their own work. And then internally in their classwork, I think it's mostly about what I would say more live performance oriented than trying to say, we're doing this kind of theater or this performance style or opera or anything of that, and then really opening the doors and saying, how do we pursue those, and how do we use New York City as a sort of launching pad into those worlds. So it's just me as the lighting professor there. So the work there becomes more about a conversation about are we pursuing the right questions? How do we get more information on these things, and how do we really engage as artists in the world we want to be making and creating in the work at school?
Yeah. And Jen?
So we are actually in an entire program review right now that is rooted in this idea. To this point, our curriculum is completely based on a regional theater model. There are courses within the curriculum that stray from that, particularly in lighting design, actually. But we are looking at the program in terms of how do you tell a story and how do you create an environment that might encompass all of the skills across all the areas of design. It's something, particularly myself, that I realized in my career very early on, that I couldn't just go out and do theater and sustain a freelance career. And sort of the height of that was working on these automated plants for Cirque du Soleil. And I didn't do anything with the automation, but what they looked like, I determined the look of the plant. And the way it was sort of approached through my design skill was creating a character out of a plant. And then the actual bits and pieces were fabric. So that was completely within my wheelhouse. But for me, with the program, it's how do you take these base skills that you're getting in a theater program and apply them to any creative project, whether it's a live design project or not.
Yeah, and I think you've all hit on a couple of things. One, we're all storytellers in our own way, and you to have the building blocks to learn how to tell the story your way in whatever where you're doing it. And also, we all work with people. We're not doing this alone in a room by ourselves, and you have to learn how to do that sometimes. Yeah. All right, Drew, where to now?
All right, well, we'll stick with Jen. This is our third episode focusing on theater education during the pandemic. We previously talked about the abrupt ending last school year and the expectations as this year began. There was so much speculation, and we are now about halfway through. What was your school's plan going in, and how is it going?
So the university as a whole gave a lot of control to professors as to how they were going to teach, like what mode we were going to teach in. And then I think our school, the School of Theater and Dance, our administration did a very good job of setting expectations for the production season. So we are producing shows via Zoom. We are filming shows and releasing them in live, with live components to them. So I actually am teaching both a design class completely online and a costume history class that's half and half. It's half asynchronous online and half in person. And so I'm at the school, twice a week teaching one class. And I feel safe on the UF campus. UF really, they have a medical school and big hospitals right on the campus. So they've been really in a prime position to sort of pull off what they were intending to pull off, which was to keep spread to a minimum, if not zero, on campus. And certainly we're not seeing any spread in classrooms. So I think it's been a really great semester, because I also think students are really seeking that face-to-face contact at this point.
Yeah, definitely. Anne, what about you?
It's tough. You feel for the students. You want to, you check in on them as much as you can, even if, like, I haven't been to our campus since March. I have a grad student that we had a meeting right before this that I realized I've never met. I said, "How tall are you?" We were like sort of measuring how far legs go out from chairs, and he said 6'6". I thought you were like 5'10". I was in charge with Brian Russman of creating our e-showcase last year, which was a huge uphill climb. And the amount that we've learned since then has been tremendous. And it's been a lot of fun looking at this and going, okay, there is opportunity from this disruption. We have to look for it. We have to figure out what we can do. One thing that we decided to do was create an anti-racist theater class for all 400 people in our school. And that was a mammoth thing. There were like 20 sections of the class. But we were sort of able to do that because we could take a little bit of a pause on some of the in-person stuff. And we had an opportunity to bring in a bunch of really interesting folks. So it's, in many ways, it's great. We're finding those opportunities. In other ways, you just worry about people being isolated and there's nothing you can do. I'm going to try and deliver a bunch of Thanksgiving dinners and wave at people from the sidewalk next week, but you do feel a little powerless, especially when the social contract is live and in person, right?
Yeah,
and it will be again. Justin, how about you? What's with Brooklyn?
We so we went home in March and finished the semester digitally, and elected to take entirely this fall digitally, and then again, I believe we'll do this spring as well. And I really, Anne, you said a beautiful word, which was disruption, right? You know, and there's people who are paid to disrupt, like it's their job, and so I think in some ways I've been thinking a lot about that idea or that word, about how we apply it to our industry and how we apply it to our education, and what are we actually doing in these rooms, and am I helping the students? Am I actually doing anything, you know, useful in this sense? I think also as a disruption point, I think that for us, I think also anti-racist work has been really critical for Brooklyn College. We see White American Theater was also really a point of understanding of a lot of white supremacy and systemic racism that I was being witness to, and was a part of, and saying, okay, what do we do? How can I be a part of identifying change and making, or at first maybe not even like stopping to listen and saying, what are we doing? What's going on? And so that's been a big part of the semester, and I think lifelong work from here is to really say, like, okay, are the classwork about, what are we teaching here now, and how can this online format actually be meritable and useful, as opposed to saying, okay, I have to fit what I used to do into this silly little green dot, and changing those. So, and how do I still help these early career professionals get something that they can actually think bite the apple, so that it's not just like, well, I guess I learned how to hang out with Townsend, but like, who cares, right? And so I think that's been some of the classwork specifically I've been interested in.
Yeah. And Jorge.
Sure. Well, BU adopted a hybrid model. It's called Learn from Anywhere, so the students can choose on a daily basis whether they're in person or not. We have a couple of iPads in our Light Lab that we turn on and Zoom, and some students show up there, some students show up in person. Some of my classes have been completely remote. I just said, if I'm just talking for an hour, I do very little lecturing, but if I do, let's just, not take the chance to not be in person. Our students are being tested 3 times a week. Faculty is being tested once a week. Takes about 5 minutes. I had a student last week who said, oh, I'm really sorry. Actually, I need to, go for a test. I forgot I just scheduled it. And he came back and it was like he went to the bathroom. I mean, it took 2 seconds. So we're all masked, we're all distanced and all that stuff for those of us who are in person. But much like Justin was talking about, we really, I think something that we as a faculty focused on very hard was trying to think about what are opportunities that we can do now that we couldn't do before, because we were always so busy and the theater's never available to do that, or because for whatever reason, we just couldn't fit it into our normal workflow. And so we created a lot of different opportunities for the students. They're very discrete. They're sort of separated out. The important elements of production sort of separated out into different projects, but we're still doing collaborative projects that they have to do an artistic creation of something that is meaningful to them. We do have some craft projects as well that the students are doing. We built a turntable with 3 scenes on it, and the lighting students got to light each of those scenes, and also there was a soundscape underneath it. And it was a little like watching the Hall of Presidents, because there were also costumes under it, and then everyone would turn around. But they really had to work together, and they had to learn how to build molding, and they have to learn how to light around the molding, creating a shadow on the wall. And all of those experiences, I think, were important for us to add to the students' body of experience. We also did mono operas, where the opera program did arias, and so we set up a red plot in one of our theaters. And then when the performer was about to perform, everybody would clear the room to a control room, which was down the hall. Performer would take the mask off, perform the aria, and then we would wait 25 minutes before entering the room, because the they put in additional air filtration in there. It takes 25 minutes to clear the air. So everybody would wait 25 minutes, go back in, do any notes. So our students got the Light 4 camera in that situation. So that's not an opportunity that on a normal basis we would necessarily have. So
I think I know the answer to this. Did you feel safe? Do you feel safe in this situation?
Absolutely. Yeah, I have felt very, very safe. When the students are working, if they have to be sort of closer contact, like if they're both lifting a platform or something like that, they have to wear a mask and they have to wear a shield. Everybody, because they were tested so frequently, they really stay on top of it. BU, by the way, I looked it up. The 14-day average for BU has been a 0.14 positive rate, which is well below what even Boston. With Boston's been pretty low. But Boston, our county in Boston has been about 2%, 2.25% the whole time. So BU has actually been well below that.
And Justin, is Brooklyn, is all of Brooklyn digital only, or there are some people at
some of the acting classes I know are doing some hybrid work, some voice classes specifically, and they're figuring out how to be the most sophisticated in their response.
Speak in opposite directions or something. And is Carnegie all off campus?
No, like most of people here, it sounds like we are hybrid. I am staying off campus because we have a limit to the number of people who can be in a building at one time, and so I feel like the material that I'm teaching right now, I can do differently than I can do online. So acting classes, lighting classes, anything that needs equipment, studios, people are there.
So the lighting classes they're doing something.
Yeah, most of them. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Jorge, let's go back to you, actually, because you already answered this question for the most part. So this will, it's just a question about how you can give students practical experience. It sounds like you're doing that. Since you can't actually work with performers as closely as they normally would, what else are you able to do? Are you, as a lighting teacher, do you use any of the virtual offline editor previs programs? And then for Anne and Jen, does that exist in the world of costume? Jorge, what are you doing?
Absolutely. So I teach an undergrad lighting design class and a grad lighting class, as well as a class on automated lighting design. And what I did is I tried to structure my lighting design classes more on things that were about seeing, it didn't matter where you were. A lot of the projects were sort of observing light around you. And so I tried to also, anything that needed to be in person, I tried to front load it in the semester, because I didn't know as the semester went on that everybody was predicting a second peak, or which we're apparently now, we're kind of there. But I didn't know if we were going to shut down and go virtual. So I front loaded all the sort of, here, look, this is a light, let me turn it on for you kind of thing towards the beginning of the semester. Now we're really doing a little more projects about finding art and using art as a way to communicate what the show would feel like at this moment. But we are, especially for the moving light class, that would have been really, really hard to do. You kind of need to just do it. So what we did is we created our light lab. We did a 3D version of it in previs, as well as our big booth theater. And so that was my backup plan. If we had all gone remote, then all the students would have been doing previs stuff for, learning to do this to the lights. One of our students has been in that class, has been completely remote. So she has been using a combination of vision, but then she got a little frustrated with it. And so she switched over to augmented. We couldn't do it right off the bat because augmented had not been released yet by the beginning of the semester. But she found that it was a little easier on her hardware. She's doing it on Nomad, which touch screens, no faders, no buttons. So, but yes, we've been taking advantage of that for sure.
Augmented are not sponsors of this show. Yeah. Hear that?
Absolutely. And next semester, sorry, I should mention, next semester, it's going to also be I'm going to lean pretty heavily on augmented to teach that moving light class.
Cool.
Yeah.
Justin, sticking with lighting, are you able to do anything like that? Or I mean, in the level you teach, what are you up to there?
A couple of things, I think. Thank you, ETC and Augmented. That even the sort of light lab package they have, it lets really early learners get their hands dirty very quickly. So it allows like, oh look, I can affect change. Cool. All right, let's get to work. But I think there's a few other things that I'm trying to do. One thing you're going to think I'm crazy about, I think my students think I'm crazy too, is that I've actually tried to remove. I'm fascinated by the idea of tech. Part of our job as a lighting designer is specifically being able to be in tech and make make the thought leaps, and also be able to give each other notes, right? And so what we've been doing is this is a little ripoff from Christopher Brecka at Cal Arts, and maybe Janie Geyser as well, is to make tiny little performances into the camera. So to say puppets is the wrong word because it's not Punch and Judy or like Henson-esque puppets. I guess it could be if that's what the students are interested in. But it's making shows without technology so that we can have a conversation about cueing, idea, time, event, structure, composition, and it's easy to like retech and fix or look at something or redo and do notes. And so it's a very personal exploration and a very hands-on. It sort of feels like beginning theater all over again. And so it's just like making theater together again.
And it's a great building block because also you do have all the technology. Hopefully one has the technology at a certain point in their career, but you're also training your brain to be able to use it and quickly, because that's the thing you don't get, especially as a lighting or sound designer, projection designer in the theater. You have to do it fast. Yeah. And how does that apply? Does this apply to what you're doing with your students? Are there virtual methods?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of a media mercenary myself. So, everything from drawing and painting to digital stuff. But we are right now teaching them along with the, build a model box, we're teaching them a digital workflow that involves SketchUp and V-Ray and AutoCAD. And what I worked in collaboration with the teacher of that class to have them model one of their own pod spaces. We call them, it's a space that they could get to regularly without endangering themselves, for production of Fires in the Mirror that they're doing in my class right now. And I'm having them, sit in chairs and move around the space and take photographs of themselves and, take a table lamp and move it over there. What happens? What's the difference if the audience is here, if the audience is there?
And you sent us a photo of that workflow, right, Anne? Is that the one that you sent in?
Yeah. We're using Miro boards. That's actually a different project, but
okay.
Using Miro boards, and that it's a remarkable tool. So finding tools that actually really help facilitate this, but being able to be in the space and move a chair around in class and say I'm in my theater now, even though it's their dining room or their garage under their apartment, has been kind of a remarkable thing. And also having a show with a single performer that deals with current issues. It's almost like packing in too much stuff. There are times where we've sort of had to drop some of the technology because, it gets in the way, and so we do that. But we do teach a workflow that goes all the way through. All of them are going to have a rendered project at the end.
Cool. And Jen, how about you? Jen, I feel like we haven't gone to you in like 20 minutes. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Haven't heard your voice.
Listen to what's happening at everyone else's universities. So there's not really pre-visualization in costume world, like where you can put all the characters on a stage per se, unless you're going to get into something like animation, which is a real stretch.
Yeah.
So we have just taken this call in education and in theater for anti-racist pedagogies, and where we would normally be teaching design projects that are really Western based. We've added projects this year for students because they don't have the realized work that are non-Western based. So it's still stretching their imagination, even though it's not realized productions. It's stretching their imagination beyond sort of the norm and what they're comfortable with.
Cool. That's amazing.
Something I forgot to mention, guys, is I actually have a photo of one of the previous environments that we created. So this is our main space, and we designed this concert rig for the students to work off of for the moving light class. And we installed it into our main space. We said these lights cannot just sit for a year doing nothing. So something that's kind of cool is that the students in person are working on this rig, but also whoever's remote is also working on that same rig, just virtually. So this is one of the student projects. McKenna Ebert, who's a junior, really talented junior, was lighting. I gave her a song from Hamilton, Wait For It. And so this is a segment, and you can see, you know, there's always a lot of questions as to how does Previs sort of compare to the real thing. By the way, it's sitting on a box, so you can't see the floor. Those beautiful gobos were all over the floor as well. But it actually has translated pretty well, especially for our needs, which is really learning, for example, the pixel map, all of those color source bars in the back and things like that. You know, our program doesn't focus very much on technology, but this is one sort of little sliver where we really feel like we have to provide the students with just a little more information.
Cool.
But even then, we're still really very focused on the storytelling.
Well, and Mark Stanley, who's been on this program, and the other teacher at BU, from what he said on the show, focuses less on the technology, really less on the technology, and more about the basics of lighting design. Yeah,
so, but and it's also good for them, I think, to be efficient at just understanding what the console is doing. Really, that's it. It's not for them to be programmers. Sure. They need to be efficient with their tech time. And also, I do think, you know, with this pre-visualizer stuff kind of coming out, augmented, we might be, you know, our tech time's not getting any bigger. So it might be a way to, you know, well, let me pre-program that. Right? That doesn't matter. I just needed to do this. And then you can walk into the theater with it and not have to spend the time with it. So,
you know, on many levels that does work. On the commercial levels, it still costs people money that they don't want to pay for. But, you know, it's still totally possible, and maybe it's going to be more designers sitting in their living room.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I'm gonna go to Paul Kilsdonk's question here. He had asked this question to a previous panel of educators and got inspiring responses. So I'd like to poll this group of professionals. Do you explain to your students that the career of theater design and production can be incredibly fulfilling artistically, yet can lead to a struggle financially? Jorge, Jen?
You can answer it, Will. Who wants to go first?
Yeah, Justin. Whoever wants to go.
Yeah. Justin, go ahead. You started.
Yeah. So you know, look, if you want to be a person that's going to light all my sons, there's a long line. There's a long line of people who want to light all my sons, and I tell my students that very clearly. And I think that's not to say you can't wait in line or you can't figure a way to get to the head of that line. But I also believe and tell my students that there is a huge amount of work, or historically has been, in all sorts of ways of production, and how do we conceive what we do. And so if we try and say, I only do this one thing and then I don't know where I fit in the world, then yeah, I think that's challenging. If we say, here's my skill set, how can I engage? There's all sorts of production opportunities happening and growing and only making more and more work. So I do think it's, you know, for me to say, this is not the millionaire's career, and yet like, the sure thing. I guess I don't say that specifically, no, and I don't. I would be surprised if anyone thought that.
Yeah. Does anyone else want to take a crack?
So the entertainment industry is like 6% of the gross national product. There are a lot of jobs out there, and
it's not just all my sons.
Yeah, at this point. But and what the things that you do on All My Sons, you're also doing on The Big Bang Theory.
Sure.
You know, there is an artistic through line to pretty much everything in related industries. So, I mean, Carnegie Mellon is a ridiculously expensive school. I think it must go to landscaping. But I think it helps for people to know that there are avenues that, you know, can help pay off the student loans. It's really, it's sometimes it feels a little hard to sell, because it's a little hard to say, you can come out of school with however many hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt and go work in the regional theater, and have, not live in a closet. It's tough. It's there's a balance.
Yeah. But it's people, we all do it. People do it. Somehow we all do it. So it must be worth it just to enough of us that it's become a career. So I guess that's what I would say. Jen or Jorge, do you want to add anything to that?
I would just add that there's a saying I like to use, survive to thrive. And there's a moment in everyone's career where they have to decide, right? Am I just going to keep struggling and getting by and therefore surviving, or do I want to thrive? And what is it that's going to change that for myself?
Yeah, sure.
This also, I think, brings up the point of diversifying. I think students, and I hope students going forward, aren't afraid to try different disciplines in lighting, and not just rely on theater. Yes, that's their love. Yes, that's what they want to do. But I filled so many gaps, especially earlier in my career, by doing windows, by doing concerts, by doing all sorts of different corporate events. For me as an educator, that was also helpful because I had kind of have experience in a lot of those things. But even now, I'll pop into television, I'll pop into whatever it is. I'm not afraid to do it. So I hope that people think about that. Even if you're really, really focused on making it in theater, it can help to diversify as well.
Yeah, thanks. And Paul Kelsdonk, as always, thank you for the questions. It's nice to see your name pop up every time, anytime. Can't wait to see you in person. So our next question, actually, our next question, Max, who has commented, had a similar question. I'm gonna jump in with the one that we wrote. I give Max credit for also writing a very similar question. So this is obviously a difficult time for everyone. How do you motivate your students and how do you inspire creativity? Anne, let's start with you.
I don't have to. They're hungry. They just want to do the work. And anything that relates to it, they want to try. If you can put something in front of them that they can get their hands on, if you can provide an opportunity to collaborate, if you can provide just the tiniest little morsel of something that's a start, ask an interesting question, do something that resonates. They are in it 100%.
Cool.
With that said, there's a lot of, everybody's struggling with, issues of mental illness, are way up on our campus, and I suspect on everybody else's campus, just from isolation. If you can provide the more ways that you can create community, in person, online, doesn't matter. They're just hungry. They just need.
Yeah, that's great. I think that applies to all of us. Call a friend, everyone. Jen, how about you?
Our students are also really hungry. I think it's their escape, right? You put a script in front of them and they can just sit there and get into it and pretend coronavirus doesn't exist. The one thing we do hear from them consistently is that they have time management issues, which, that is what school's about partially, right? Is learning how to manage your time. And I think that's really tough right now because they have nowhere to go. But I also think if they're going to live the freelance life upon graduation, this is a really good opportunity for them to be living and working in the same space and figuring that out.
Yeah, it is somehow harder. As someone who has my entire career scheduled pretty much every part of my life within an inch of itself, I am now more late for meetings than I've ever been. And I don't understand how that keeps happening, but not by a lot. But I always show up.
It's like they took all of the punctuation out of life when COVID started. All of those cues that we had, they're just gone.
Yeah. I also don't look at my, I don't look at my calendar all the time. It's just not something I do these days. I do sometimes just to see how, empty. Jorge, how about you?
Absolutely. Well, so much of it, I think, is checking in with all of the students and really having personal, sort of conversations with them, just making sure that they are, that they're feeling okay, that they're moving forward, that they are also, we're trying to get them to see the positives and what can happen. What we're having the hardest time, I think, is keeping the older students, keeping their energy up, because really this is their last year. This is the year in which they would have done all this production. They had been building up the entire time. They were in school to do this big show, and now it's not happening. And so I feel like it's a little hard. It's a little tougher on them.
Yeah.
So we just continue to have a lot of conversations. Mark is checking in with a lot of the seniors all the time and just talking to them and making sure this is going to be okay. There's positives that are going to come out of this. So
yeah,
hopefully they just start seeing it and feeling it. That's all we can do.
Totally. Yeah. And Justin.
I think it's brutal.
Yeah.
The students my heart goes out to them daily, and I really admire the tenacity and the curiosity and your presence to show up every day, and I really feel that sincerely, and so I really value the classroom as a place for community, to go back to that original idea we started with, but a place of community for us to gather and start to talk about what we want to make now. And then I really try and customize and set the bar individually for each student where they're at, and really tune into where they are, what they need, and how we can really tune into their curiosity and sort of learning potential, and really customized around what they need. And that, I think, provides us the most sort of forward motion. And then because it's within community, it provides the texture, the grit, or the traction to sort of accelerate through the gathering, through the circle of that work. Is we sort of know that we're moving somewhere, and I'm excited.
Cool. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's get to some happy questions. With Jeff's favorite part, or my favorite part of this entire thing.
Jeff's Roundtable Rapid Fire.
Let's get to it. Go ahead, Jeff.
Your favorite part, the video intro or the actual section of the show?
The video intro, because it's my
That's
voice.
what I thought. Okay, here we go. Anne, we're going to start with you. Something you recently watched or TV, or on TV or streamed. Wow, rapid. Something you recently watched on TV or streamed.
Grimm.
Jorge.
American Horror Story. Beautiful production design and really awesome stories.
Jen.
The Social Dilemma.
Ah, cool. Justin.
Sugar Skull. My wife has been really prolific making digital theater throughout this, and I just saw with my family her production just before this.
Nice plug. Nice.
Give it. I was gonna say, give it a plug. Where do people watch that?
I think it was touring through the schools. I don't know how one does that now, but they figured it out. It's pretty remarkable.
Amazing. Okay, staying with Justin. Favorite Thanksgiving side dish?
Cranberry.
Love it. Jen.
Dressing.
Jorge.
Dressing as well.
Anne.
Anything vegan.
Dressing, not stuffing. Dressing. Just
Dressing.
one.
That's right.
Okay, got it. Okay, staying with Anne. Best advice you were given by anyone?
I think I said it earlier. You, your work is you, but you are not your work.
Great. Jorge.
Don't wait for the work to come to you. You go get it.
Yeah. Jen.
Don't sweat the small stuff.
Justin.
Stay dangerous. Keep your overhead low.
Justin, something that excites you about what you do?
Getting to work with other people, getting to know other people, and myself through them.
Yeah. Jen.
Collaboration.
Jorge.
I think it's that look of discovery and understanding that I get from the students when they really understand something.
Cool. Anne.
The joy of the next good question and the next good exploration.
Great.
Or the next rapid fire question.
Or the next good question. Anne, what is an innovation that has made your job easier?
Gosh, they all, you know what? I have trouble with this question because they all make my job easier and they all make my job harder. So the computer, easier and harder. Maybe a Google image search.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Nice.
I should have said no computers, but since I didn't, computers are allowed. Jorge.
Yeah, I'll cheat a little bit and give you a couple answers. I would say artistically, LEDs, they're really changing what is no color. Turn on 6 fixtures and they're all going to be 6 different colors. I would say from a craft point of view, it's EOS Magic Sheets. It's really changed the way that it's made me a lot faster. But no longer do I have to go to a sheet and then screen and then stage. I just look at the screen, there it is. And an old one, this is kind of a cheat because it's been around for a while, but the undo button. It really changed my life. Anybody get hit release too many times?
Multiple undo. Multiple undo.
Yeah.
Game changer. Jen.
So any of the apps or programs like Slack, Teams, etc., that are collaborative platforms, management platforms.
And Justin.
I was going to say Brad Gray, the programmer, as my first. Has made such a great relationship. But I think if I had to pick a thing, it would be Jorge. Jorge nailed it with Magic Sheets for me. That the speed and intuition of staying on the stage.
Of moving through, yeah. And you can say Brad Gray. Let's get Brad. Al, let's get Brad on the show.
I see him reaching for his phone now. Thanks, Al.
Okay, Justin, the hardest part of your job. Don't say Brad. No, I'm kidding. The hardest part of your job.
The hours.
Yeah, totally. Jen.
Same.
Jorge.
Juggling the educational and professional duties.
Anne.
Not resorting to looking for answers, continuing to look for questions, not being finished, although you're done.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point. And staying with you, favorite part of the process?
Same thing.
Yeah, Jorge.
I would say educationally, it would be when students have an aha moment. That's really amazing. And professionally, I would say it's the working with the director and the design team in the theater, actually with it in front of you and making the thing happen. Yeah.
Jen.
Fittings. It's everything's coming together, right? You've got the actor in there. You've got the draper in there.
Yeah. Justin.
Educationally, I think being surprised at work, like what have you done? That's really exciting to me. And then I think the rough hookup in professionally, the idea of when you finally commit to ideas and like how to resource management.
Yeah, cool. Justin, staying with you, are designers reaching out to you looking for a job in education since many of them aren't working? Have you seen a lot of substitute teacher requests?
Yeah, not so much.
Cool. Jen.
No, but we have gotten a lot of responses to attempts to network by students from designers that normally we wouldn't get.
Yeah. Jorge.
We did not, but we did hire, I believe, 6 to 8 directors to come in and work with student teams on an artistic project that is meaningful for them. Yeah. So they've been doing little creations.
Yeah. Anne.
No, but just like Jen and Jorge, much more availability when we reach out to folks.
Yeah, that's great. Anne, first place you want to travel to post-COVID?
Antarctica.
Oh, Jorge.
I would say Puerto Rico, so I could go see my family. It's been a while. Yeah.
Jen.
Paris.
Me too. Justin?
Yeah, to see family outside of Boston and Mississippi.
Yeah, cool.
Antarctica is the best answer of the table rapid fire so far.
Yeah, I've never been. I'd love to go anytime to Antarctica. It's on the list. I hear it's beautiful. Justin, what were you working on when you were told to shut everything down and go home?
A light lab project the students were getting ready to set up.
Yeah. Jen.
So we were moving into tech on a production of Eurydice, and I was also shopping with a student designer for a production of Macbeth.
Jorge.
I was about to head out to City Theater in Pittsburgh to work on a brand new play by Isaac Gomez called Perk Up, and I'm really sad we didn't get to do it because it's an amazing, amazing play, and I wish we had really gotten the time to work on it.
Will you get to do it?
Possibly. We're going to cross our fingers. I hope so. It's really a great project.
Also,
but it was closed. I was like next day I'm flying out.
I love City Theater also / Yeah. Anne, how about you?
Oddly enough, a show at City Theater called Cry It Out, which was we got almost, I think we got through previews. And we had 7 shows at CMU that were left dangling that we sort of tried to reinvent.
Yeah. And what do you miss most about live entertainment being shut down?
I think I said earlier that social contract of the shared experience, being in the room together, live and in person.
Yeah. Jorge.
I'd say the same thing. I think the audience, sitting at an invited dress or a preview, and then hearing someone behind you sort of reacting to the work as an entirety. I think that's the part I miss.
Yeah. Jen.
The collective energy, whether it's audience energy or just all of us being in one space, creating art together.
Justin.
Knowing my friends and colleagues are employed and safe.
Yeah. All things soon enough, or again, if not soon, again. Jen, let's go to you next. We talked about inspiration in students and motivation. How do you inspire yourself and motivate yourself during this time?
I actually get that from the students. Even if they aren't feeling that they can motivate themselves, they sort of drive me forward on a daily basis, just to show up for them in whatever form of humanity at the moment that I'm in.
Yeah. Justin?
I'm learning 3D Studio Max, Unity programming, trying to figure out how other ways to engage with performance and what that means. The anti-racist training has been really informative and helpful for me. And then I've been cycling, and also just happy to be at home and be present. Yeah,
sure. Jorge.
So I've been one of the original members of a group called La Gente with the Latinx Theater Network, which has formed this summer in the reaction and the aftermath of the George Floyd and all the talk about diversity in our industry and everything. And we have been working towards visibility, engagement, and within the theatrical community. So we're creating a search tool where you can find our members. You can do it regionally by discipline and things like that. So I've been finding a lot of inspiration in that. Also from my students, same answer. I mean, I'm already prepping for next semester.
Yeah.
It's already started.
Yeah. Anne, how about you?
There's a lot to be inspired by right now. My students, my colleagues, the colleagues I work with to create this anti-racist theater course. I've taken up my fine arts undergraduate degree. I'm doing a lot of fine art stuff. I'm taking a certificate course at MIT about creative leadership. There are a lot of different doors kind of open. And all of my colleagues and certainly students, number one.
Cool. Great answers. Oh, we're done with the rapid fire section. Sorry. Should we have said that, Drew? Sorry.
Yeah, I guess
we'll have to have a music outro now too.
Yeah, I'll make one.
And we're almost done.
We're also running out of time. So
we're also running out of time. Okay. So quickly to the end, a couple more questions. You've all been obviously very busy with school, and that's amazing. Aside from that, have you gotten to anything you've ignored, or a new hobby, or cooking something, anything that surprised you? Anne, let's stay with you.
I've been painting like a mad person. I can't put a brush down. Painting a collection, which is a blast.
Oh, we are a high-tech show. That's great. That's beautiful.
This is you too, right, Ann?
Yeah.
Cool. Cool. Jorge.
I've been working around the house. It's looking good. The garage is more organized than it's ever been. Working on the gutters, all those things. But just really focusing on family. Cool. I cook every night for them, and we're all well fed, and everybody's healthy. So.
I've been screwing up household projects left and right myself. I have so much respect for people who like for craftsmen. God. Jen, how about you?
So I lived for quite a chunk of time of my life in Texas, and I don't know if anyone has ever eaten Tex-Mex baked, or I'm sorry, Tex-Mex refried beans, but they're like a whole other, right? So I have been spending a lot of time trying to learn how to make them. And I'm on batch 5, and I'm very, very close to being satisfied with the flavor.
Well, when you can them up, I'll send you my address.
I love the stick-to-itiveness too. Like batch 5, I get discouraged.
Well, I don't know when I'll get there again, right? So like
yeah,
desperation involved.
That's great. That's great. I love it. We'll all have to try. So when we can all be together, we'll all eat it. Justin, how about you?
Yeah, I think it's been really amazing to be healthy, to like actually say, oh, I don't just have to make and produce and do things and do other things for the theater or for the school, but actually taking time for myself and taking time for my family and like cycling and meditating and like slowing down a little bit has been completely novel and really, really helpful.
Yep. Cool. Okay. One more question. I'm actually going to combine 2 questions. I'm going to say, what advice do you have for young people who want to do what you do? And what advice do you have for the graduating class entering the world under these conditions? Justin, let's stick with you.
So the advice, like we said, stay dangerous already, but I think it's essential to really understand. There's a temptation in the career to like try and do it like other people. And I would say, try and do it like you. And that's really hard to figure out, and that's going to take time. So don't worry about it. Take the time. That's the deal. What was the other one, Jeff?
What advice do you have for the graduating class? Which is, it could be the same advice.
Maybe I hear that.
Yeah. It's good advice, and you're right. You probably won't know what you are as a designer today or tomorrow. I mean, you can change too.
Oh God, Jeff, I have something else to say. I think that this is a point of transition, and I think I have a lot of hope for this moment in time for our theater, for our new students. So in some ways, it's a lot of doom and gloom because it's really awful right now. And I think this is a moment of rising from the ashes, like literally a place of rebirth, of regrowth, of what happens next. And I'm super, super curious. And I think these classes right now, they are the people who can most reap the benefit from this time.
Yeah, that's a great. Thanks for adding that. That's great, and it's also about training the audience for something, for whatever the next phase is. And hopefully, that's happening too. Anne,
very much like what Justin just said. I mean, the earth has been laid bare. Plant something. There's the borders are no longer this. You can make the thing. Don't wait for the phone to ring. Don't wait for normal to come back, because you're going to make the normal.
Yeah.
So make the normal. Make it what you want it to be. It wasn't. There were a lot of problems before. Take a look at them and make it into what you want it to be.
Truly, the people who you're teaching right now will be the ones who make the next normal. That's what it's going to be. Jorge.
So I would say general advice for young people is that if this career doesn't get you up in the morning, then business school is a fantastic option. There has to be something else that's driving you. There has to be a little extra in the tank for you to really, I think, succeed. You have to really want it. Otherwise, there are other things you can do. I would also then say that in echoing everything that Justin said in terms of so many programs across the country, the students sort of spoke up and said, we would like to diversify. We need to diversify our curriculum. We need other voices. And I think that will reverberate across many theaters as well across the country. And so I'm hopeful that we can start to hear many more voices as well.
Yeah. And Jen?
I think, you go to college, you get a degree, you go to grad school, you get a degree. The idea is you're going to graduate and do great things. I think students need to release their expectations of how quickly that's going to happen given coronavirus, right? And so to take small wins where they can get small wins once they've graduated.
Also great advice. Thank you all. And we've reached the end of our show. Thanks again, Drew, for all the switching. What people don't know is that Drew is also directing the show,
no problem.
Switching cameras around. Anything else you guys want to add or retract or clarify before we let people go have dinner? Let's let people go have dinner.
Yeah. Thank you again, everybody. And thank you again for everybody who tunes in every week. We really appreciate it. We'll be off next weekend, but we'll see you in 2 weeks. To this panel, Jorge, Ann, Jen, and Justin, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And we will see everybody next time. Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.